Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. Today, my guest turned a doodle of a donut cat, yes, I said donut cat, into a fabric toy in 2012, and since then has captured the hearts and the sweet tooth of all the folks who come visit at Pikes Place Market in Seattle and online with their tasty collection of pastry pets. Please welcome Thomas and Skye of Marnin Saylor. What's going on, guys?
Hey, we're doing good.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. Gotta say, my heart's beating. I'm pretty excited about this.
I'm excited too, because you don't understand. I met you guys. Well, before I start talking about that, because I know I'm gonna get lost in it. My first question always right off the bat is, what is your go-to favorite sandwich?
BLT.
Go-to favorite. Skye's been making these really good breakfast bagel sandwiches. So that's my go-to right now.
Okay. What's usually in the bagel sandwich, out of curiosity?
Well, there's different levels, depending on how much food's in the fridge. If we're going to go like full on, it would be tomato, cheese, avocado, bacon, and egg. Yeah, some arugula on top.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
On an everything bagel.
Oh yeah. I love the everything bagel. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll put cream cheese, and I'll even put everything bagel on the cream cheese to then go into the sandwich. So yeah, I'm all about that. That's definitely some good stuff.
Do you put chips in the sandwich? You ever do that?
Yes. A lot of times.
What is acceptable?
Everything's acceptable. I call sandwiches with chips in it. One of my favorite sandwiches is a sandwich that has French fries in it, and I call those full meal sandwiches. That's kind of like where the sides and everything are already inside the sandwich. That's kind of the theory behind it. I love those. You don't even need sides. You could still have extra chips, but it's nice to do that. I just had a sandwich this weekend that was so, and it was refrigerated. So I needed something because I kind of felt like it was a little soggy. So what I did was I grabbed a bunch of chips and threw it in there just to give it a little extra crunch factor. So helped out quite a bit. No sandwich goes uneaten in my house.
Now, what about, desserts? It's like ice cream sandwich. That's the extent.
So today is actually National Ice Cream Sandwich Day.
You're making that up.
Nope. Swear to God, today it is. Today is the National Ice Cream Sandwich Day. So to August 2nd, if you're hearing this, obviously you're not going to hear this August 2nd, but just so you know in your calendar, National Ice Cream Sandwich Day. It is. Yeah, you missed it. Hopefully you had it. If you follow me on social, you definitely know about it because I even posted my shirt, and I'm even going to go after our interview. I'm going to go. One of my favorite ice cream shops is actually selling ice cream cookie sandwiches.
Ooh,
so yeah, that's one of my favorites. But s'mores. There's a lot of different desserts.
Oh yeah, geez, I'd never even thought about that.
You can definitely do quite
a few. S'mores is technically a sandwich.
Is it an Oreo technically a sandwich?
Yeah. It is called a cream. It's called a cream-filled sandwich cookie is what it's called. If you ever see it on the box or when they talk about it, the craziest little fact, and this is kind of where my nerdness comes out. I think it's like 80%. So like the double stuffed, a lot of people say like the double stuffed is actually not double. It's almost like it's like technically it's only like 75% more, or between 75 and 80% more cream than what it is double stuffed, but it's okay. I'm fine with it.
Okay. Last intro sandwich question from me to you, since you have all these sandwich facts.
Yeah.
Do you remember, like Wendy's or not Wendy's, it was Hardee's or whatever they call it, Carl's Jr. They had like a chicken sandwich that had lettuce as the bun. Is that truly a sandwich, or is that just does that fall within the experts categorization?
I do not think, I don't consider wraps because that's kind of like almost like a lettuce wrap. I wouldn't consider a wrap a sandwich.
It could fall out both sides though.
It's in the handheld world. So kind of like hot dogs and other things like that. It's like our pizza or tacos. They're kind of in that world is what I call it, is what I kind of think. Okay. All right. So
curiosity stated.
No, I love it, dude. I'm all about all this conversation. So I just kind of want to be able to, first, let me have you tell their story, because I mentioned donut cats and, pastry pets. I know people are probably like, well, what the heck are these? Who's Anthony talking to? So tell people a little bit about Marnin Saylor. First off, before I start, I love the fact that your name is basically, and I'm assuming it's, you guys started the business before you got married. Is that correct? So it basically, the interesting part is it's Thomas Marnin and Skye Saylor together creating Marnin Saylor. So it's kind of like they sandwich the idea, or you
The
cream
law
fill.
offices of.
Yes, like the law offices of, exactly. And so that's kind of where the name came from. So now tell people a little bit about the story about how the whole idea of Skye, how you came up with Donut Cat, and then kind of how it evolved.
All right. Well, I had been making plush toys, like stuffed animals, for fun for quite a while, starting when I was a kid, but then starting in earnest when I was in college. And like you said, it was in 2012. I did just a little doodle of a donut cat in my margin of my notebook or something, and I thought that it would be fun to make a toy of it for myself. So I did, and some friends of ours saw them. I took a picture and posted it, and some friends saw it, and they all wanted to purchase them for holiday gifts that year. So Thomas was very excited and is always up for helping me with pretty much anything. I was like, oh, I'll help you make some of those. I was like, oh, okay, that sounds fun. So we made a few for the people that wanted them for presents. And then Thomas suggested that we try to do a craft fair, which I really actually didn't want to do.
That was a long time later, though. This guy's missing out on a lot.
Oh, okay. Well, you should jump in.
So that was 9 months after we started making them together.
That's true.
So
I don't remember what happened between.
Well, yeah, what did happen? So Skye made the first one for her, and then the friends wanted some, so I started helping her make them. And then Skye came up with the mini donut cat. So we actually make big toys that we haven't made in like a year, since like before lockdown. But we make a big donut cat that has paws. That was the first toy. It's bigger than a donut, but smaller than a cat. That was kind of the way we describe it. And then Skye came up and was like, oh, we should make a donut-sized one. So we started making the mini donut cat, way easier to make. Like the big ones take forever. But the little guys, they fit in a donut bag, super cute. So we started selling those to friends and family. We made a really bad website where people could mail us a check. Like obviously we weren't trying to sell them all that hard. Yeah. And then we got into a few like local boutique shops because it just sounded like fun, to have this project that was kind of ongoing. And Skye and I went to school together, art school, for graphic design. So we were designing like the tags for these things and the website and everything, which was just, it's an enjoyable practice to do, to make something nice as you can. And so we got into a couple of boutique shops, and, at this point, we were making like 10 a week or in 2 weeks. And I remember just being exhausted. I was like, this is impossible. It's so hard. It takes so much effort to make these. And we're selling them for like $8 or $6 or something ridiculous.
I think it was 8. Yeah. Eventually then 10.
And then
like
12
yeah.
And then 16 and then 18. And now, they're up to like $10,000 a piece, guys. Okay, 28, but still. But yeah, so we had all these boutique shops that we were in, and then we did a craft fair in September 2013, and we like decked it out. We made walls for this craft fair. We had a 10 by 10 space, and we made 8-foot walls. Something we'd never done before.
Because basically we wanted it to look like a bakery. So we built like the walls, we built the first iteration of the pastry cases. I wore yellow like pants, and Skye wore a yellow skirt, and we had white shirts with pink bow ties, and we had paper soda jerk hats. Yep. And it was a hit. People loved it. It was a 1-day fair, and it was like, it was exhilarating. I didn't take a single bathroom break the whole day because I was so excited, because there's just people coming, and it was almost an altered state of mind to be back there and have such a great reception. And, like my cheeks hurt at the end of the day from smiling so much and talking to people.
And this was and out of curiosity, this was inside Pikes Place, right? This is like a special event, or was this somewhere different inside in Seattle?
This was just a craft fair in Seattle. Okay. Yeah, just like a 1-day craft fair. But at that show, we met the guy who oversees all of the day stall booths for Pikes Place Market. So I think a lot of people don't know that if you want to sell in the day stalls of Pikes Place, you have to jury in. It's not like...
Should we explain what the day stalls are?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yes, that was actually gonna be one of my questions. So thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So Pike Place Market, people think it's like a fish market, or it's like a flower shop, or it's like restaurants. The market's actually huge. It's multiple square blocks, and it has everything from the fish market, which there are actually 3 fish markets, 3 separate businesses that are fish markets. There are dozens of restaurants, and lots of little shops. There's a seniors center where senior citizens live. There's a food bank, just a whole bunch. It's a whole community. And there's also hundreds of people who sell handmade craft up in what are called the day stalls. They're called day stalls because you set up in the morning and then you break down at night. So at the end of the night, all the tables are clear. So the day stalls are kind of where we started in the market. So we did that craft fair that went super well. And the guy who runs the day stalls was there. And I'll let you continue the story from there, I guess.
All right. So I think a lot of people, when they're walking through the market, they think that you can just show up and sell for like the day. You just arrive, and if there's a table, you take it and you sell whatever you've got. But it doesn't work like that. You actually have to jury in. There's a whole process with multiple levels of committees and things like that. And you can only sell things that you, as the business owner, physically make by hand yourself with the help of only one production assistant. So there's all these rules governing the day stalls that are meant to keep it like just micro businesses doing handmade local stuff. So anyway, the guy that oversees that program of the market was at that craft fair that we did, and he saw our stuff and was like, hey, we're always looking for new people to join the market. You guys should try out, send in your application. And we did, and we got in, and it was really exciting. And that was in November 2013 that we started upstairs in the booth. Yeah.
And the first day, so the market, especially the day stalls, you have to imagine there's all of these crafters. What are crafters but introverts with a creative bent? Weirdos. Freely admitted. Hopefully. Sorry, crafters out there if you don't feel that way. But that's my sense of the situation. So of course it's going to be like you've got hundreds of these people who spend most of their time working on creative projects alone. And you're shoving them in like the public face, essentially. So
in 4-foot little segments along this giant long hallway. Yeah.
And, people have been there for 40 plus years. There are people all the way up until, it just started, and people have been there for 40 years. And there's like unwritten, unspoken rules of the market. And like, so the way that the market works, if you're a crafter, you go to roll call in the morning. It's a physical roll call. You go up front, you all gather around this board that has a map of the layout of the day stalls. And people, based on seniority, call out what day stall spot they want. And then that's taken for the day. So on our first day, we're at roll call, super nervous, like excited, but also like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? We call our spot, and turns out this was a day that wasn't very busy, so there weren't a ton of people there. We picked a spot between a couple that had been crafters for like 30 years together, and they always split a space in the middle. And we went right between them.
We didn't know.
We didn't know, but we didn't know why they were so like cranky towards us. I mean, understandably, like if you're in that environment,
yeah,
if there's space, you give it up. You spread out equally so that you can all have a little extra space. Because you're not just, if there's extra space, you take what's left over. So it was a major faux pas, and we got it was like some low key, you got chewed out a little bit. Ann and Richard, if you're watching this, we're sorry still. You guys are awesome. I understand why you're upset. But yeah, so that was kind of an interesting moment. And actually, here's the craziest thing that happened that day. The first sale that we had in the market, someone came and they bought one of every single thing that we sold.
Which was not many at that point.
It wasn't a lot, no. But they bought.
Can I ask you a question? When you first started and you actually had the day stall, so how many I guess, pastry pets did you have at the time? Like assortment of pastries. Obviously you had Donut Cat. Like, did you have like 3, 4 different ones, or what did you guys have when it when you first opened?
We had the vanilla, maple, and chocolate big donut cat, vanilla, maple, and chocolate mini donut cat, and then maple bear, like a maple bar, which for those of you who don't live in the Northwest, that's probably called a long john.
Or it doesn't have a name. They don't exist on the East Coast or in the South.
Yeah. It's a long donut with maple glaze.
We do actually have them now in the South, by the way.
You have maple bars. Yeah. They've made it.
Mm-hmm.
They have arrived.
Because of Voodoo Donuts, and then obviously who doesn't like maple bacon on donuts? So we've gotten a few of those. Yeah.
I mean, they outcompete other donuts. There's a reason why they're making their way around.
Oh yes.
They're the apex predator.
Say goodbye, Long John. You're coming. Maple Bar's coming for you. Yeah. So we didn't have a ton of toys, but like the big toys, you know, I think at the time they were like $60 or something, which is a big deal. So they bought 3 of them, 1 of each flavor. And then they bought 3 of the mini ones, and then they bought a maple bear. And is that all we had? Did we only have plush when we started?
I don't think we had done keychains or anything yet. I think it was just toys.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
they felt really good.
Yeah, they bought everything, and we were just like, it's a sign.
But also, I think I was like, really? Excited, but also confused.
Well.
Was it also kind of like, oh crap, we're gonna have to start making more? Like, how did you guys? Because since it took a while to do, like, especially in the beginning when you had, like, it was just the 2 of you. I'm assuming you didn't have what you have now, like your bunch of knitting bakers who go and are constantly baking up new pets. So I mean, I could imagine it's like a mixture of. Because it's a day, you're going in every day, right? You guys are selling every day at the market, or when is the market? We weren't
selling every day. So the day stall, the nice thing about the day stalls that's different from like having a commercial space in the market is that your schedule is completely flexible. Like, at that point we were both still working at our other jobs. Mm-hmm. And so I think maybe we were doing like maybe 2, maybe 3 days a week, depending on the week. And it wasn't like we had a set schedule at that point either. We would just be like, oh, look, we've made enough stuff to go. Let's go. Right.
So the fear of making enough money to pay rent wasn't there yet.
Yeah. We didn't quit. We didn't both quit our day jobs and commit to like a steady market schedule.
Until like 7 months later.
Yeah. Summer 2014.
Yep.
And then is it because of the flexibility, and just out of curiosity, is like, how expensive is it to do a day, like to be part of the day market? Because I mean, you're obviously selling, like you said, it's a 4-foot space, right? So it's pretty small, and compared to like other markets and setups. So is it like pretty affordable where like you're like, I could do this if I had it, I can do it every day? I mean, obviously I know that the market's always busy, and there's always, obviously it's a huge tourist attraction, so a lot of people are always there, a lot of foot traffic happening there. So is it something that's pretty affordable? Is it like, I don't know, like, is it less than $100 a day to be able to do it?
Oh yes.
Have you done like a big craft fair?
I have done craft fairs. Yeah, I've done craft fairs. What was the
most expensive one? I'll use that in comparison because the market's crazy how inexpensive it is.
Oh, that's why I was kind of curious, because like I know some, like we have some like farmers markets that are like 25 to like $30 a day, and then we have others that are like, that's only like a 1 or 2 days, and it's maybe, if it's like a huge weekend event, you're looking at like maybe $300 for the weekend, or you're looking at something like, some like $100 per day to sell. So that's why I was kind of curious to get an idea of adjustment.
It's a lot more like the farmer's market. So the pricing is super affordable. The real cost, I mean, it doesn't go above, even like on a summer Saturday, it doesn't go above like $36 or something.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is the price is variable. So they charge you less on the weekdays than on the weekends, and less in the winter than in the summer.
Yeah.
So sense. The most expensive day is like a summer weekend, and it's like $35 or something. I don't actually know what it is now because we haven't been in the day stalls for a while.
Been there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Comic-Con's like $800, $900.
Yeah. You're looking at, if you're doing
crazy.
if you're doing something like that, or even doing like in Orlando, like a MegaCon, I think it's like $300. At least $300 a day or something like that, and it's like a minimum. So yeah, it's pretty expensive to say the least. So I totally get that. So I'll never forget, because I've been to Seattle twice, and the first time, and it was like in Seattle, and probably the last So since you guys were there, and I remember walking and, you know, doing exactly what you said. Like we caught the fish because my wife happened to read the book from the same guys and like was able to catch a fish. And we did like the whole experience. I'm walking. We're like seeing the flowers, the pasta. I mean, you name it, they have it. It's like it's by far one of my favorite places to visit. And one of the biggest things that I loved about seeing that market was the fact that it was a bunch of creative small businesses, and being a small business, I just needed to talk to like everyone who caught my eye. I was like, how did you start this? Why did you start this? And I won't forget, because I remember seeing Thomas, and I remember standing and looking at it, and to me, like, I think back later when I was thinking about it, is like very similar to probably how some people maybe look at my stuff and go, what the heck is this? But for me, it was more like, holy crap. I'm like, this is so like unique. And obviously, like, because of the whole branding aspect of it, like you said, like Thomas, like you got the fact that you guys, like the bow tie, wearing the soda jerk hat, the fact that you guys had all the pastry pets like in like almost like an encased looking like donut shelf, like, and the fact that it was only like it's only like 4 feet. You guys even had like made, I still remember, because you even had like a banner made of like paper, like a paper little banner, you know, kind of like banneret. And it was like, I remember standing back there and just looking and going, what the heck is this? This is amazing. And I couldn't wait to talk to you guys, because I was like, I need to talk to them, because I'm like, look at them. I'm like, this is like, who came, like, because I mean, are you guys like, I'm just kind of curious, are you guys big cat people? Like, I was like, do you love cats? Or, because I'm like a dog guy. That's the only reason I'm asking. Because like, I'm like,
second.
Everyone always asks us that question, and well, no one will be able to see because we're gonna just have.
But there's a puppy that I'm holding right
now.
There's a
dog,
an awesome puppy. So like for me, because I was like, man, I'm like, this is like, this is amazing. And I'm like watching, and the fact that, like you said, the fact that you made them small, and that you actually grab them with like tongs and you put them in the little paper, the experience, like that to me was like that is part of the experience of being able to see it, was just amazing. So like, was that something that you guys kind of like, and I know you kind of alluded to it in the beginning of the crafts fair, because you guys had to almost go from the craft fair, like when you guys did that, to then saying, how do I have to make this smaller, encapsulate this 10 by 10 area to now 4 feet, you know, area, and be able to provide that experience. Talk a little bit about the reason why it's so important to be able to have that like branding and kind of be able to give that experience to a customer when they're coming, because I do think that it adds an extra layer to when you see someone and approach someone and you see them, like the whole thing, when you see it from a distance and you approach it, it's an experience.
Yeah, well, first off, cat people, if you're listening, we also love cats. We just happen to have a dog.
Yes, we like all animals.
We do,
but no, people assume that we're like crazy cat people. We're not.
We're just crazy people.
Yeah,
you don't need the cat or the dog on there. I mean, that's probably part of it. Like, in all seriousness, like Skye and I went to art school together, so spent a ton of time drawing and thinking about that kind of effort, and spending a lot of time alone just working on projects and doing things. So there's a certain amount of that goes into anything like that, where you just have to be able to buckle down and solve a problem, and be able to be hypercritical about it, like, which is a big part of it. You know, like having an idea, executing it, and being like, is this good enough? You know, but it's also very iterative. Did you have something to say?
I don't know, maybe I don't know if I'm going to answer the question exactly either, but I guess the reason for me that I gotta backtrack. Okay. The reason why branding and making it an experience is so important is because, especially in Pike Place, people are looking for an experience. Like, they're not just looking to go and just have a transaction. You know, you could buy most of the things that you can buy in the market, or somewhat similar things, just shopping online, and that would be fine. You know, you could find another small handmade toy company, you could find another jeweler, another pasta shop, whatever. and just order it from your house. But when you go to somewhere like Pike Place, like you want the whole experience. You want to do what you did, where you go and you see the fish being thrown and you pick out your bouquet and you sample all the food, and it's so easy to get overwhelmed in a place like that with so much going on. So for us, it was just like, I don't even know if we really thought about it in kind of a conscious way, but it seemed very clear that like in order to stand out in that space and in order to make our business like the most enjoyable and fun thing that it could possibly be, like it had to be an experience in and of itself. And we did start that at the craft fair. And then as far as like downsizing it to the booth was definitely a challenge, but we always knew that like the tongs and the paper bags and soda jerk hats were like, those are like the key points. And so as long as we could fit that in there, and that's, I don't know, that's what really matters.
Sharing that experience with the people that you're in a sense performing for as the retail person, as the retail person, like you get to share in that, and there's joy in that as well. You know, the fact that you can see people just light up with excitement or see them slowly, like one of my favorite things to do at the booth, especially, kids would come up and they'd be super excited about it. And their parents would be very standoffish, you know, because they're not 100% sure about what this is or what it's about or why, you know, the toys cost so much, you know, or whatever it is. And it would be a lot of fun for me to just show that there are all these layers to what this experience is. There's the toy itself, and then there's the making aspect, and then there's the branding aspect, and then there's little touches that we put in there as well, little clever little one-liners, or just a genuine conversation with the person that we're talking to, like to draw them into a real human experience, to almost give them a throwback to an earlier way of living where you knew the guy at the hardware shop and you talked to him a little bit, you know, like providing a space for that to happen and doing it in a genuine way it's good for us as people too. So yeah, your answer is way better than mine, Skye.
No,
I just didn't know where you were going with the whole like we work hard.
I think it was a good mix. It was a good mix. So
right,
let's fast forward. So now you're in the stall. Obviously, success. You're doing it. You decided 7 months later to start kind of like, hey, we're going to do this full time, and you fast forward 2019. You guys have the chance to open a brick and like your own spot inside Pikes Place, like. How did that conversation go? Because obviously now you're talking like more, I look at, my brain went like, as soon as I saw it, when I saw that was coming, I was like super excited. I was elated for you guys. But at the same time, my brain went with like, holy crap. I'm like, way bigger space, more stuff to have to fill. And then also the fact that like, oh, this is going to be way more expensive than a day stall. Cause it's a waste, obviously it's not like it's not a small footprint. So like, how did that decision making go, especially with both of you guys doing it full time? Like you guys are the business. Like how was that a hard conversation to have? Was there like an aspect of like concern and fear of like, what if, or, what kind of, or did you just say, forget it, let's just go. We're going all, we're going all in.
Well, that covers a lot of different feelings that we had. It's really, there were a few big factors.
I'm just going to say real fast that it wasn't as if they offered us a space in fall of 2019 with no like preamble. And we were just like, had to decide like yes or no. Like we had been working on the market for years at that point.
Lobbying
like
them.
We had known for so long that we wanted a permanent space, but spots just like never come open in Pike Place.
Yeah.
Like
well,
the space.
Good spots, we should say.
Yeah.
The market is huge, and there are places where people just don't go.
Nooks and crannies.
So there's turnover in those places.
Yeah,
exactly.
But the space that we got, the woman who had the store in there previously had been there for like 30 years. So
wow,
that space hadn't been open for a long time. But basically, it wasn't like they came to us and were like, oh, hey, decide right now. It was like, we had been pestering them.
Yes, pestering them for a long time.
So finally they were like, okay, this lady's retiring. You can have the space.
Right. Was it one of those where they're like, hey, do you want a spot for like a certain amount of time to see how it is? Or it was like straight up like, hey, you want to sign a lease?
Yes.
And it went that route. Got it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so that decision process, that decision tree. So I'll give you guys a little bit of surrounding information about toy making because it it heavily influenced our decision. So, gonna get a little lectury here. So, hand making stuffed animals and making it as something that you do for a living.
Do not recommend.
Do not recommend. It's nearly impossible. And there's a couple reasons. And the big ones are they have a low cultural value as objects. So consider me a master toy maker. Well, I do pretty good at what I do. Same thing with Skye, I can spend an hour on a toy and it can be worth $30, say. A jeweler can spend an hour on a piece of jewelry and the markup, the perceived value of that effort and the material is way higher than a toy. Because it's such a heavily globalized and industrialized process, we have expectations about what the value is for them.
Toys, not jewelry.
Yeah, well, that too, in a different way. But so we were eating ourselves alive at the day stalls. We weren't going to make it much longer. Because of those rules as well, you can only have one production assistant. So it was Skye and I just plugging away, being there at the booth. It's February, it's raining outside, we're riding our bikes, we can't afford a car. We're bringing our stuff in, our toys in on our bike bags in the morning, freezing cold, sewing in the cold, just a few people walking by, just picture that scene. I'm wearing 3 pairs of thermal pants and pants on top and, And
because of the handmade rules of the day stalls, it's not like we could have this product that's so time consuming and labor intensive, but then also supplement that with something that's just designed by us and outsourced. Yeah, it's like, nope, everything that you sell has to be handmade. So get back to work, you guys.
So our coloring book, I would go back home into our 1-bedroom apartment, which was also our studio for most of that time. We didn't have a dining room. We had a print station, our dining nook. So it was just an incredible amount of effort to maintain the level that we were at. And
really, really hard to grow past a certain point.
Right. We had a lot of eyeballs on our stuff, which was super helpful. And we got to meet a lot of people, but it's you get older. You start doing something when you're, how old did we, was I 26, 20 something, 26 or something. And, you have this spryness about you and
youthful enthusiasm.
But, when you get into your 30s, you start to slow down a bit in some ways. And it's just you have to make things work in different ways. And for us, it's we knew we had to have a store. And another reason why we needed to have a store outside of the fact that the main thing that we offer is very difficult to make and undervalued, and that it was very hard, is that what we make really requires its own context. So you were talking a little bit about how when you saw us, it stood out because it had a branding and a look. In the day stall booths, you're in a very particular environment. There's a lot of smells outside. There's, it's meant to be a historical market. So there's columns in the way, the lighting's really bad. It's noisy, it's bustling, which is the great thing about it as well. But it doesn't really give that feeling that our toys have. It doesn't give that essential bakery feeling. Yeah. So having a store, Skye had the opportunity to design a space to our specification to really convey that emotion, convey what that experience should be. So that was another big reason why we wanted to do it, to just make it that much better.
Yeah.
A whole little world.
I think I think that's a huge factor. The fact that you guys said that you guys couldn't do keychains and do all these other elements to it because those are all things that either you can, you'd have to make everything. So it does kind of create a level of difficulty to kind of be able to expand the brand or the, the product line, when you're not able to actually just say, okay, yeah, I can get this done. Like someone else, have someone else screen print the shirts for me, and whatnot and stuff like that. So that makes total sense. You guys, and I think because of that, I'm assuming because of that, because that's one of the reasons why I've noticed like a huge influx of amazing different types of products. But I also noticed that you guys do a really, really good job with collaborating with other artists, like some of your prints, and even like your newest thing, kind of like the little dish, your little your little dish area for like the cats, which is like kind of like, I mean, it's great because it's like a perfect little concept to have it, and it fits within your world of having your your donut cat, but that's kind of like in a dish. So like, is that something that you guys came up with that you wanted to do, or is that something and you approached folks, or do you have enough because of the creative community, they all started coming to you and saying, hey, I'd love to do something with you guys, and it just kind of just steamrolled? How did that collaboration happen with the different products that you guys offer now?
Well, the poster collaboration actually started like years and years ago, back when we were still in the day stalls, but we just couldn't sell them at the booth because, again, it wasn't our work. So we were only selling them through our website, and, at the time, not selling much of anything through our website. So not selling many posters, but that was Thomas's idea back in the day, just because we did have so many artist friends, and we would often meet people at the market who were artists, and it was just a fun way to like get to know them and throw a little bit of work their way, and I don't know, just I guess strengthen those relationships.
Yeah, we Skye and I are pretty good at a lot of things, but it's like there are people out there who are so specifically amazing at some things, and it's like you just can't even touch. You're just like. And to have the opportunity to work with people that are super talented and super specific in what they do, it's just cool, and being part of the crafting community, it's just, you rub shoulders with all sorts of like super talented people. So that, the poster project was like 2014 through 2016. And it was just fun. It was a fun thing to do. The latest iteration is actually Skye's idea, and she's managing all those, products and relationships with the artists, and that's something that she's been wanting to do for a while.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a two-pronged thing, because it was like, like you were saying earlier, we have this whole store now, we've got to fill it, and we do a pretty good job with our stuff, but there's always more space. So it was like, how do we get some cool stuff in here that, again, we don't have to make, because we've got toys to make and enough stuff to do. So, new products that we don't have to like have our hands in it all. Pretty awesome. Something for our fans to be excited about, because they always want new things. And then again, just getting to meet and collaborate with these people. And, like you were talking about the trinket dishes that we just released. It's like, yeah, I've made some ceramics. They weren't very good. Right. Natalie's are amazing. So like, yeah, if you happen to come together through Instagram or whatever with someone whose work you admire and they want to work with you and they're really good at what they do, it's like, yes, absolutely. Like, let's work on something together. So yeah, for the most recent ones, it was definitely kind of both, where I reached out to people, and then I also did just like an open call to see what ideas people had, and they sent some things in. So yeah,
and
it's been great.
The basis of what we do is handcrafting. Skye and I still spend probably 50% of our time just sewing and making toys. Like, that's been our life for almost a decade. That's so crazy. There's a lot of, I feel like what happens a lot, especially in creative industries, is it gets co-opted and then mass produced in some way or another. And having that strong connection to the production side of things, it changes your perspective and gives you a lot of respect for people who are doing it on their own. Yeah. And to see someone that can master something that took years of effort is, well, you just have to honor that if you can. And sharing that is always a good thing.
How do you guys handle, or at least handle, not getting burned out? Because it's a lot.
Who knows?
I would say that up until very recently, we have not done a very good job of handling that. Yeah.
Oh, that is the ultimate question, right? It's like okay, so here's what happened. We're in the day stalls. We're cranking away. It's been 6 years of just, just grinding. I mean, also loving it, don't get me wrong, but it's still work. Like, if you have a job and you're working 60 hours a week, it's still hard, even if it's something you love doing. So we're just grinding this out. It's 6 years. And at that point, sorry, Pikes Place Market, we totally snuck in another employee to help us out for like the last year that we were in the day stalls, because we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And that summer, before we found out we were getting a store, like 2 weeks before, Skye and I started taking a day off, a regular day
consistently.
And this is like 3 weeks. We're like, this is awesome.
I think it was only once a month though, or something, wasn't it? Or was it once every other?
It used to be once a month that was guaranteed. And then it was like once every other week, and then we finally were like once a week we're going to do it.
Okay.
And then 3 weeks into it, it's like, we found a space for you guys. So
we're like, oh, goodbye days off.
Up until
time to open a store.
Up until about a month ago, we've been going. Well, and I mean quarantine, of course, but up until about a month ago, we've just been going hard. But we started taking day off again, which has been really nice.
Yeah, we, as far as trying to prevent burnout, having a lot of different projects going at once, I think, is helpful, because you at least get to feel like something novel is happening.
Mm-hmm.
But that can also be a double-edged sword, because then you have so many irons in the fire and you just feel completely overwhelmed by how much stuff you have going. Yeah. So that is arguably helpful. But we finally just hired enough store people just within the last like 2 months that Thomas is only down at the store 1 day a week, and I am there 0 days a week now, which feels crazy. Right. Aside from going down and just, checking on things and filling in here and there and stuff like that, because the store still feels like my baby. So I don't want to be totally hands off with it.
But it's been 7 years.
Yeah. And like now we take every Saturday off together. Feels insane.
Really cool.
It feels so weird and yet so right. Yeah.
So burnout's like a real thing, and you see it in Pikes Place. Like our class of 2013, there were 12 of us
that joined the day stalls at the same time.
Yes, that joined the day stalls at the same time. Like you have an orientation together.
Your cohort. Exactly.
So you know who they are. They drop like flies. I think there are 3 left.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, even if you stick it out, like you see it in the people that have been there for a long time, it's like the passion kind of dies and you're just kind of going through the motions, and you're not really like pushing yourself either in your craft or to grow your business. And I mean, we see that in some of the commercial tenants down there too. It's not just the day stall side. It's like anything that you do, if you do it long enough, it loses its magic. So,
and just small business, it's like you do it all, so it fries you in different ways.
Yeah.
The day stall is like a pressure cooker though, because it's all of it, and it's so immediate and so intense, like, because you can't take that pressure off yourself. You can in some ways, like you can hire a person to sell for you, but we knew that we couldn't afford to pay someone to do nearly as good of a job as we would do. So we actually did that for 2 days. We had someone sell for us, but you just can't give that kind of experience if you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. Well, it's also, I mean, I also think like, because people have asked me, they're like, well, why don't you have someone like sell your stuff when you go do events? And my biggest thing was, well, in many ways, I feel like I am part of the brand. Like I have the story, I have the reason, like I have the explanation of why I did it. And when people start listening to you, they start gathering and seeing that passion, and that becomes then another layer of it. It's kind of like another connection to the brand when they have that and they see that experience and the knowledge or just the passion of why you're doing it. So I totally understand that. That's like that's always a tough one, you know, with that whole aspect of like, how much am I willing to kind of give up at the same time but at the same time having to get that ebb and flow. Cause like you said, when you're doing all this, you're doing all the different aspects of business, you can, it's overwhelming. Cause then you kind of almost start losing the creative side because you got so much of the business side that sometimes has to happen. And that's kind of the unfun part of the business sometimes.
I mean, Skye spends hours a day just writing emails. We're at the point now, we've grown to our company is 9 people now, and we've got a storefront and online's picking up, and it's getting more serious. So it's like luckily, I mean, a good part of that is there's enough momentum, like the snowball is rolling enough now that the context is more noticeable. Because you go into the store, you maybe saw us online before, or you just see that there are a lot of people in there. There's like a pull to come in. And the people that work for us like understand what it is and know what it is. So we get to take a little bit of a step back from that aspect of it.
Yeah, we were just talking the other day about how we feel like it's finally reached a point to where we don't have to be, like you were saying, like such an integral part of the brand.
Every part.
We don't have to have our story front and center to like sell what this is. Like it's finally almost 10 years later at the point where it can sell itself. And a huge part of that is the store and just being in that space. It's like we always knew that the store was the answer, and it feels so gratifying to know that actually was true.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of the ability for the store to maintain itself is a administrative undergirding. Like there's so much that goes into just having it open. Like compared to the amount of things that we sold in the past, like at the day stalls, it's multitudes more. So it's just, there's a lot more to keep our eyes on. And that has to be attended to, or there is no store, So it's like the business aspect has definitely risen in profile as of late, and also the management aspect.
What advice would you give someone who has a unique business concept and is maybe thinking twice about doing it because it's so out there or maybe so different? Do you have any advice for them?
So there's 2 ways that I'd go about it. First one is having the experience that we've had. Ideas are cheap. Ideas are easy. I can give you a great idea right now. How about a teleporter that teleports a sandwich from where you are to where I am? Sounds really nice, right?
Love it.
Like, right. Perfect idea, right? But it's a matter of execution. Like if you have a great idea, that's awesome. And you do have to have something to start with, of course, and you have to have some passion for it. But what happens is you find out if you're determined. You find out if you have what it takes to actually see something through. So the advice I would give is like, this is something that I've been learning a lot about recently because Skye is a much more organized person than me and handles most of the administration and just making sure that stuff is on lock, that the calendar is scheduled. So I've been able to kind of like ride in her wake. But I'm trying to get out of that because it's, in a way taking advantage of what she has to do.
Yeah.
So something that I would give advice to someone who is like me, who is not as conscientious or detail oriented, is like master yourself in some way. Like schedule, be reliable, be consistent, and start in a small way doing that. Like give yourself a goal to do. And instead of just having that project sit around and being like, oh, I'll get to it. It's like, if you don't make it happen, it won't happen.
Yeah. And I mean, as far as just developing your idea, like if you're worried that it's too out there and too weird, I say just lean in and make it weirder. Like, do what we did, get the freaking tongs and the pastry bags and just like take it to the next level of weird, because it's either going to make it or people weren't going to care anyway and they're still not going to. But like if you are willing to go that extra step and just like really make it the best possible version of what it can be, or maybe just the fringiest possible version of what it can be. I mean, that's what's going to separate you from everybody else. So yeah, let it go.
And give yourself time to suck at what you do. Like, the first 100 toys that we made were not good.
Yeah, I don't know why people bought them.
Right,
I'm very glad they did.
There's some essential part of it that was good.
Yes.
There's some essential part of it that was appealing. There was something there.
Some essence was there, yeah.
But the handcrafting skills were terrible.
Not terrible.
Okay, not terrible.
Great.
We're pretty good. They weren't great. You're right. They weren't terrible. They just weren't. They weren't professional. They weren't great, and it really took. After 1,000, you can start to be a little more critical. But initially, it's important to be I don't know what I'm doing. There's going to be so many different hurdles that I'm going to have to jump over, and I'm going to fall on them the first try pretty much every time. It's okay to fail forward.
Do you do you guys have a running tab of how many pastry pets you guys have have you guys ever gone that route of trying to figure it out?
A couple of years ago we did, and it was 20,000 toys. I don't know. We're probably at around 30, somewhere around there, 30,000.
That's insane.
Plus. I know. It is. It's weird. Oh yeah. Also, if you're planning to do craft, keep in mind there is a physical toll for all that kind of stuff if you're going to do it at a high rate. Be careful.
No, definitely. How do you deal with, and I'm just kind of curious because I always, when I come home from an event, my family usually wants to hear, they don't want to hear about it sounds crazy. I've been doing it long enough now that they never want to hear about the exciting scenes or the people. They want to hear about the naysayers, the ones that come up to you and go, why would you open a place like this? How do you ever, I'm assuming you guys get that. Do you ever get those where I'm wow, I'm spending more time talking to you about trying to tell, why are you still talking to me if you don't like what I have? But yet you're why would you do this? Do you ever get that? Did you guys ever get those people that walk in, they're why would you do cats in a donut? It doesn't make any sense. You ever get that? And then they're and they just go and go and go. And you're oh, okay, then just leave now. Thanks.
Fortunately, we get a lot fewer of them now in the store than at the booth. Yeah. In the open air booths, when everyone is just walking past you person after person after person every day, you just hear so many stupid comments. Mm-hmm. And it is exhausting and it can make you feel really bad about yourself.
Yeah.
Thankfully with the store now, there's a physical barrier to entry. It's you get to look in the store. Yeah. You can see, more or less what's going on. You might not fully understand it, but you get to decide whether or not you want to enter that realm. So that's been really nice. But as far as how do you deal with it?
It's changed for me. Actually, I do not mind people that don't get it, because in my they're missing out. That's how I think about it. I'm that's fine. Honestly, if someone's even on the fence in the store, if they're oh, I don't know, I'm don't worry about it. You can take a card and order it online. I don't want them to get it. And maybe it's kind of a selfishy sort of thing. I don't want them to be part of what it is at this stage. They're going to be a latecomer. They're going to be oh, I saw these guys at the market, but they're not going to have been someone who got why it was interesting at that time. And that's their loss. So for me, I'm yeah.
That's true. And the thing that they don't buy, someone who really loves it is absolutely going to walk in 5 minutes later and buy the thing. So
yeah.
No, that makes total sense. What do you guys think is next? Do you guys have a passion project you're man, I really want to be able to do? Because you guys already have you guys have done some kind of form of vinyl figure I know your Fortune vinyl figures of what you call it, your Fortune cat,
the Maneki Neko, the Lucky Donut Cat. Yes, so those guys are 2-part urethane, not to be pedantic, but those ones. Yeah,
the Lucky Donut Cat figurines, those were cast and then hand painted by us. Mm-hmm. So those weren't
official vinyl toys. Although that being said,
we are making an official vinyl.
It'll be out in a month and a half or 2 months.
Yeah. So that's exciting.
That is exciting.
Love it. That's like well, my brain goes there because I was like, oh, I'm like, if it's either that or 3D printed version, but something like that's got to come because they just would make sense to have them. That's awesome. Very, very exciting. What anything else that you guys are kind of looking? I mean, is it kind of one of those where you have like a little brainstorming area where you kind of like keep all your like ideas of like, oh, this would be cool, and you kind of have like a little parking lot, or like, you know what I mean, like a little spot where you kind of leave it in there. You're like, oh, what about this? And then you just kind of leave it out there, so it's like out in the universe, but it's not really there. Like, how do you guys do some of that brainstorming stuff?
Oh, there's a bolded list. There are many things. I mean, there are enough projects that we have in the pipeline for us to kind of just float for years, honestly. Like the ideas. If we
never came up with another idea, it'd be good for a couple of years. Yeah,
for sure. And as far as like completely other ideas outside of the pastry pets, that would be a big, completely, be a different brand. And we would like to do that eventually after pastry pets is a little more solved as far as just like figuring out how to manage the size of this thing and knowing that it's going to grow. So yeah, the pastry pet side of it, it's like if we just had time, we would have so many more things coming out. But there's a lot to deal with. Yeah, there's like 5 things we're working on right now.
There's a really fun project that I'm hoping actually happens in the fall, like we said that it was gonna, like last January, of a re-release of a limited edition thing that we've done like multiple limited edition plush toys in the past, and there's one that people really loved that we were hoping to re-release this fall, but it's already August, so I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I'm hoping it does.
It's a pretty big project. It's multiple products.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted on that one. But if that happens, that'd be great.
Well, I mean, the thing that I do love is the fact that you guys have gone now, and because of the storefront, like have the ability to do like the shirts, the t-shirts, sweatshirts, so there's all that aspect of it. The fact that your store has the I would say the Instagrammable wall. I definitely would say you guys always have that aspect of it. So that's kind of some of the things that I find to be like such a great experience. Like I'm looking forward to, like, I'm always trying to find an excuse to go back to Seattle. So like, I definitely will be visiting the store when I finally get the opportunity to go back. But I mean, for me, every time I would come, I always would try to find you guys or at least see you guys, just because it was like there are certain spots that I had at Pikes Place that I knew I needed to hit while I was going around. So like, and you guys are always one of them, just because I wanted to just see you guys, and I kind of feed off the creative energy. So it's kind of how I look at it. What advice do you have? Any tips or advice or mantra that you guys use or live by, that you guys kind of live by?
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're going to say.
This is going to sound pessimistic. Don't take it that way, people listening. It's lower your expectations. Yeah. Okay, and here's why. We got burned so many times on releasing products or working on some new thing that we were like, this is going to be it, this is going to be the thing, like if anything's going to happen for us, this is going to be the thing that's going to make it happen. And the first big one, we did this limited edition toy called a pizza bagel cat. So we could use our same pattern for the, we released them in 2015, I think 2016, somewhere around there. And so we got to use the same pattern that we already used for the donut cat, but we made different toppings for them. We only made 50. We custom made, meaning die cut our own and printed our own packaging, like a little pizza box that we designed and made in-house.
And they each came with a sticker. And it was a really ambitious project for a company that really didn't have that much of a following at the time.
But it felt like that thing that we would do that was like, this will be the thing people are going to remember, and this is going to be like a huge moment for us. The first day, I think at that point, we had some fans, so I think we sold like 5 the first day online. And so we got 45 still. We maybe sold 1 at the booth.
Yeah.
It took like 4 months to sell
from
through them.
August to December to sell through 50 of these like really cool limited edition toys.
And they only cost $50. And I swear to you, they were probably, if you were to pay us like Seattle minimum wage, they were probably about $150 worth of effort. And that doesn't even count the design and creative side. Like crazy.
Do you think that was in the beginning though? So do you think now as you've evolved, that's one of those things where you bring a concept of like that similar concept like that may come back? Or is that something that you kind of like, you know what I mean? Because I totally agree with that. I agree with the idea of lowering your expectations, because I do the same thing a lot of times. Like, ooh, what if this is it? Like, what if this is my secret sauce? That's supposed to like, this is the sandwich shirt that's going to like get me to notoriety and whatever. And then I just like I did one for, because I live in Orlando. So I did one for what if Anna from Frozen opened a sandwich shop? It would be called Anna's Sandwiches. And I created like her shirt of like, if it was going to be something that she would like what you would wear at the store, like if they were like working like almost like an employee shirt, of like, you know, kind of like their thing. And I was like, this is gonna crush. Yeah, I still got a whole bunch. I'm like, by all means, people, please buy them. Especially like people who love them, see them, they absolutely love it. It's just that it just didn't do what I thought it was going to do, because I thought, oh, I'm in Orlando, this is gonna like Orlando people are gonna love this for Disney stuff. But yeah, it's definitely, that's always a hard part, is trying to keep that aspect of it. And I can only imagine for you guys, especially because I'm creative, but I'm not like the artistic side. So like my big thing has been lately progress over perfection. So I'm really kind of curious on how difficult it is for you guys. And obviously you kind of gave an answer with the sense of like the craftsmanship before it go to where it is now, but how difficult was it for you to release things initially or even now, because of a certain level of creativity and workmanship of saying, oh yeah, not up to par, I don't want to release this. Did you guys ever have those moments where you're like, yeah, not ready yet, let's incubate it or workshop this or make some tweaks to it?
That is constantly our issue, because we have really high standards. And so this ties into lowering your expectations. Lower your exterior expectations. Keep your standards high for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, everything that we release goes through so many like iterations and redos. And that's like one thing that kind of frustrates me sometimes, is people be like, why don't you make more like new toys more often? It's like, you have no idea how many prototypes it takes to go from like a flat piece of fabric to a toy that looks good that you would actually want to buy. It's not like, oh, we have an idea, let's make one, it's perfect, all right, sell it. It's like, no, it's like months and months and months of work.
There's not just one, and it's every aspect, because you have to take photos, you have to design a tag, you have to, write copy for the website, you have to post about it, you just have to, it's a whole process. It's not just like, oh, just make the toy. It's like, aside from just the physical aspect of designing something, it's a whole problem to solve.
It's a lot. I will say now that if we were to release the Pizza Bagel Cats again, I guarantee you the 50 would be sold in like a day.
Yeah.
Because the more recent limited edition things that we've done now that we actually have a good following have sold really quickly. But
even still, we don't come into it. When we release a toy, I emotionally separate myself from the success of that toy.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that the process of getting this thing out is done, and I will enjoy it in a while. Like it's hard to look at your own work in some ways. It's like you finish something and you're happy that it's done, but all the effort that went into it, it's like you derived all of that pleasure from creating it. And then once it's released, you're just, it is a release for you as well.
Yeah.
So I try not to get too.
Yeah. You're almost ready for like the next thing as soon as like by the time I'm finally released and everything, between getting like for me, it's like model shots and writing everything and finally getting everything printed and getting everything. I'm just like, people are like, you must be so excited. I'm like, I'm ready for the next one. Cause I've like, I've spent so much time on this thing for so long before I finally got there that it's like, it's exhausting. You're like, yeah, I'm ready for the next big one to kind of come through. So no, I totally get that. Totally get that. Do you guys have any questions for me out of curiosity?
Yeah, Thomas is really interested in the Biggie bread puppet and how it came to be and who made it and everything about it.
So that's one of those things where my brain was like, hey, I want to create something. I want to be able to use them. And one day I came up with the idea that I wanted a puppet. I don't know why. And it was one of those where I'm like, did I really need a puppet? No, but I wanted it. So I started looking around, and ironically I found a guy, and I'll send you their name because I have to look it up again. He actually is the person that made my Biggie bread puppet was actually a puppeteer at Disney. And he actually loves making puppets. And I actually, because of this, I actually started following like a whole bunch of other puppet people just because I'm so intrigued by it. I really should use him more. The hard part with him is that his mouth is, because he's fully customed. His mouth, when you use it, it's almost like very hard to move. So it's not like a Kermit the Frog style where it's like very easy. So it almost actually hurts your hand because it's like so hard. And that it actually when they gave him to me, they actually gave me golf balls to put in his mouth to kind of keep it open, to kind of help stretch it out a little bit. But yeah, he was one of those where I got him, and then it was once again one of those things where I got him, and then I was like, well, I'm not very good at this, and then I like talked myself out of using him, and I must have had him for like a year and I didn't do anything with him, and then I just said, you know what, I really need to start using him because he's version of me as my alter ego. So then I started doing more videos and doing like, oh, I'm going to do sandwich jokes and do like little things with them. I have other ideas that I want to do with them. Like I would love to do like kind of Sesame Street-ish type of thing with like my daughter and have him like interact and like have him tell sandwich like facts and things like that. I just haven't gotten there. And that's the hard part is like the consistency. Like I'll go like I'll basically start filming on my phone, and I'll grab a whole list of sandwich jokes and I'll record for like a good hour, just like a bunch of like 20-second like jokes, and then have it and then be able to feed it. But then what happens is like I have like literally like a huge thing on my phone of all these different jokes, sandwich jokes, and I just either forget or I just don't think to it. Like I have to get more organized on using all that stuff because I have so much content, but then I forget to start throwing it. And then I'm like, oh, I don't think anyone wants to see this. They've already seen this. But of course, as you know, social media content basically is like a stream. It just constantly flows. So some people have not seen half the things that you've posted because of it. So I have to get better at it. But yes, that is how Biggie bread became. And they even gave me gloves so that I can wear so his hands, because my goal is to wear black sleeves and actually be able to make a puppet, have him make a sandwich like overhead. But the only thing was like, my whole thing is I'm paranoid about getting the white gloves stained, because if I use mustard or something, it's gonna I know it's gonna get all over his hands. So so yeah, it's an interesting thing with having the puppet, but that's one of those where I was like, I wanted to flex my creativity. That same thing. I also have like a crochet one. If you look at the very far corner, I have a crochet version of him, just because I really do. I'm absolutely fascinated with him. I think he's just a fun version of me that I want to do more with.
He looks real good. Other question. What is the hardest part about what you do with Deli Fresh?
I think the hardest part for me is, one, it's just me. So like, that's like a hard part. I feel like I always want to brainstorm, and I always want to like have, so I think for me, sometimes it's just keeping myself motivated, because you do get into those ruts. I mean, I've been doing this now for 8 years. And I'm always kind of like, I get enough of the, hey, you should go on Shark Tank, or you should go.
Oh God, this. Yes.
Yeah. I actually auditioned for Shark Tank. Okay. Because I know someone that actually was in Shark Tank, and they convinced me to do it. And so I did it. Obviously I never got a call because I was never on TV, but I'm glad I did it. I also think that my idea is so different, because of the packaging and everything and the whole experience aspect of it, that like, that's what kind of keeps me. But the most difficult part is keeping myself motivated, and at the same time being able to kind of juggle everything, because obviously, like you said, like, you don't have the money to be able to pay for someone to do things for you. So then it's like, well, how do I, but you have to, so then you're constantly juggling everything. Right. And so that's always been the difficult part. The other one, obviously, is I wrap all my shirts myself. So when we do events, it's like I laugh because I have friends who have smaller things, so they basically like load and unload in like nothing, and it takes me at least an hour because like I do this whole setup and I got the tent and then I got all my shirts and they're all the bins, and then you got to load up your car. So it's that's the hard part when it comes to like t-shirts, is the inventory aspect of it. It is
God, we've learned that since we've started
learning that.
shirts.
It is
a crapshoot. It is a crapshoot. And then you're like, well, what size is more of this? Oh yeah, people don't want this. And then like, hey, do you have this size? And then you're like, oh, I don't. And I'm like, and it's always been
this like
part of
20-way Venn diagram of style, color, and size that you're just like, oh God.
Yeah, how many designs do you have?
I have about, I think last time I looked, at least on my website right now, I think I have like 28.
Woo!
Yeah. So and I'm constantly trying to come up with stuff. And so I have different series and I have different things. So it's up there. And then the hard part is then you get like, like, oh wait, like I have way too many of this size, but not enough of like for me. Cause then people were like, are you going to reorder more of this shirt? And I'm like, well, I got every size except for that one. So no, it's not happening anytime soon.
Right.
That's always
Print
like
5
the
of them.
difficult part. Yeah. Can't you just print them in your house? And I'm like, no, I get them printed. I'm like, because then people are like, well, haven't you bought a printer? And I'm like, where do you expect me to do this? I was like, yeah, like, where do you expect me to print? I'm like, God bless the people that can do it. I think it's amazing, those folks that can do it and can make it happen. But I'm like, I can't do it. I would be able to do far less if that happened.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's easy to overextend yourself if you're a creative person.
That and that's one of the reasons why I started the brand, was because I needed that creative outlet. My job is very corporate, 9 to 5, and and I needed that creative, very process driven. So I needed that creative outlet. And so that's kind of one of the reasons why I needed to get to do something like this for me, even though I'm like not an artist. I doodle everything. Like I see what my design is, and very often is my design very similar to what we have, but I work with various artists to kind of get my vision in my out, which sometimes obviously then is good and bad, because sometimes you then I kind of fall into that whole idea of like, like, is it good enough? Like, oh, is this idea really going to work? I'm like, or did I just spend money on something that no one's going to buy? And then then I got to spend money on what I made, but then also to get it printed. So then it's like double. So that's always the tough part. And then the other aspect, like you guys probably deal with, is minimums. It's like a lot of times some of these things that you want to get done require large number of minimums depending on what you're doing. But then you also want to try to work with like other small businesses. And then there's like that you have like that balancing act of like dealing with like as many small businesses as possible. But sometimes it's cheaper to deal with some other folks that maybe it's like a little bit larger company that is not as, massive, but might have a cheaper deal or might be able to provide you something for a little bit less. So it's always a difficult balancing act.
Yeah. Small business is just, it's like risk condensed, it's just, you are running into situations where it's like, well, this could be make or break. And it happens a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like that's part of doing it right, is being able to make that decision, because that is what sets you apart from businesses that either, well, I can't use like a blanket here for all of these, but businesses that fail, perhaps they didn't take risks that were big enough to really make a go at it. I mean, there's the opposite problem too. Some people take too many big risks and go bust. So it's a balance, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the thing for me, is like I've gone slow and steady, but I'm also at a point where I'm like, am I too risk averse, where I haven't done enough of a risk or taken enough to do other things?
Just quit your day job. You'll figure it out real quick.
Yeah. And that's always kind of the tough part. Cause like with a family and everything like that kind of becomes the hardest part. Cause we're like, cause my wife and I have had conversations like that. She'll be like, hey, what do you need to do? What do I need to do it? And I'm like, there's certain aspects of it where I'm like, I think I can do enough if I just dedicated more time to it, cause obviously if I tell people I'm kind of like tethered right now. Like I have a safety harness right now. So it's a lot easier where if I don't sell, it doesn't make or break me in some ways, in all honesty, because it's not my livelihood. It's more of like, this is something that I want to grow and make it grow, and all the money that I make basically goes right back in the business just so I can keep building it. But there's certain aspects where I'm like, once you get to that point where you guys are at, where it was like, I need to make this work. It's a totally different beast. You kind of, it's a different mental, mechanism that kind of triggers, and you basically now have to, it's either sink or swim, and that's kind of that's really the biggest
your
part.
Fear response kicks in for sure.
You gotta have that survival.
Yep, for sure.
Survival feeling.
So tell people, because obviously I know I've taken a little bit of a longer lunch. I really appreciate the fact of the time talking with you guys. It's been a blast. Where can people and how can people find you on social, as well as also online, as well as also in Pikes Place? Give people the details so they can actually come and find you.
You'll never find us.
No, you will. I'll tell you how. If you find yourself in Seattle visiting Pikes Place Market, you can find us on the first floor right below street level of the main building. So one floor down from where they throw the fish, right next to the famous Market Magic Shop, which is definitely the anchor tenant of our floor. Also the same floor as Golden Age Collectibles, the really famous comic book store in the market. So we're in good company there. If you want to find us online, you can go to www.marninsaylor.com. That's MarninSaylor.com.
Once again, that's www.
And call now, and we'll also throw in a free our dog because she's exhausting and you can have her. Just kidding. If you want to find us on social media, we're on Instagram and Facebook as @Marnin Saylor. You can see all the new cute stuff we're working on.
Definitely lots of cool stuff, and you get to see the shop and everything like that. Thank you guys again. That's our show for today. So thank you so much to Thomas and to Skye of Marnin Saylor for being on, having lunch with me. Definitely make sure to check them out. If you're in Seattle, you're going to be at Pikes Place, so you automatically have to go see them. Just so you know. If you enjoyed the show, definitely make sure to subscribe. If you want to support me, definitely check out Deli Fresh Threads. Do some shopping, tell your friends, and thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.